Okay, welcome back. I hope you all had a delicious, good lunch. I thought it was excellent. I didn't have room for the dessert, but it looks really good. So I went around. It sounds like everybody's feeling pretty comfortable so far with the content that we've covered. And that's always my worry. You don't want to move too fast for somebody that's never heard it before, but you don't want to bore the people that have been through this once already. So I'm kind of playing a balancing act, but it sounds like everybody's feeling pretty comfortable going into the afternoon and doing a lot more role play scenarios. So I'm excited about that because that's the really fun part, and you get to be up and moving around, which will be good for the after lunch period. I want to give you some tools, and for those of you that have heard me before, you've seen these, but you can sure take another copy. Let's do the ruler first. So these are items that you can use when you're working with clients. You can take these back, make copies. This first one here is the ruler that gentleman on the video was using. So some people like visuals, as you've probably figured out, and as I've kind of been observing today. Some people like to write things, some people like to get up and do things. Well, it's the same with your clients. So these are tools that you can use, and you may or may not use them all with certain people. You may not use them at all, and that's fine. It won't hurt my feelings. But I like to leave you with something tangible you can take back and kind of put into your toolbox. Is anybody short? I feel like I have too many left over. All right. So this is the ICR ruler, it's called, and what you're doing is you're using this to discern the importance, the readiness to make a change, and the confidence in making the change of your client. Okay? And so you may use only one or a portion of these, much like he did in the video. You probably most likely want to know the importance of making the change to the client, and then how ready they are to do it now. So those would be the two I would say you probably use the most. You'll probably be able to discern how confident they are, I'm guessing for the most part, as you start talking to them. So that may be something you take or leave. But this is a nice one to use, and even if you're on the phone, you can have this at the ready and talk a client through it pretty easy, because the 1 through 10 scale is, super easy to understand without having it written in front of someone. So I feel like this is a really good tool, whether you're doing live in-person counseling or you're over the phone. The other one, so I have a funny story about this one. So this is a decisional balance worksheet, it's called. And this is, think of it as kind of a pros and cons list, but a little bit fancier. So if you have a client that really wants to change and they have a lot of different factors, but they're not exactly sure, if they're ready or all the things that are in play, this is a nice one to use for those tougher decisions. And so I hand this out at these trainings, and I have a little story that goes along with it, because I forgot I had this. And about 6 months ago, I work at a college, so in education, the more education you have, the better. So they asked it and wanted me to get my doctorate because I'm over a master's program, and usually they want you to be one level above and that sort of thing. Well, I have 2 small kids, as I've already shared, and I've been wrestling for this for a good solid 6 months. I thought, well, a PhD or something like that's always been on my bucket list, but is now really the right time when I've got really little kids. And my employer was really encouraging it, but also understood that it might be like a slow track sort of a plan for me. And they just, wanted me to try to work it in the next year or 2. So I've been wrestling with this. I made kind of the basic pros and cons list, and I went to a conference in April, and I sat next to a gentleman that works at Duncan Aviation, actually, here in Lincoln. And he said, yeah, I work as a manager, and I do a lot of different kind of unique leadership type things. And he said, with my people, and he said, have you ever thought about basically this, the pros and cons, and breaking it down by what would be the best and worst thing that would happen if you changed and if you didn't change? So if I did go back or I didn't go back to school. And it was funny because I see this all the time. I'd even written out kind of the partial list of the pros and cons, but I never broke it down like this. And all he was doing was just telling me what I already knew in a little different way, verbally, and it clicked. So I went back after I went to that conference and, I made my list and everything, and then it came out very clearly that, yeah, I think this is something that I should try to do now. What's it hurt? I don't have to jump all in, small changes, right? So it's funny. It's another way to present the information. You might tell somebody, talk through it, but sometimes for some people, writing it down will help. So it was a nice little tool. It's used a lot. Obviously, he uses it in his industry a lot, and I just thought it was kind of a funny, aha, I have this right under my nose and I forgot about it sort of a situation. So then let's see, this is a change plan worksheet. So not everyone is probably going to think like this and want to write out this detailed of a plan, but it's a tool you can use to guide your discussion. If you're working over the phone, you could use it as a bit of a guide if someone's really goal-oriented and wants to set a goal. Yeah. The decisional? Okay. Here's this one. Did everybody have enough of this last one? Okay. So this is just another way to identify. Once you get, it might not be the first meeting, but could be the second or third time you call or have a meeting with someone. This is a nice way to outline their goals. If they seem like someone that's kind of type A like that likes to see it written out step by step. One important thing that I haven't talked about that I would note on here is the other ways people can help me. So as you probably know, social support is one of the number one reasons someone makes a change and succeeds, because they have some sort of other partner, workout buddy, group at work, family member, whatever it may be, that is wanting to make the change with them or support them in doing it. You see this a lot with weight loss, with exercise programs, quitting, smoking, that sort of thing. And I've had the question asked of me, if you only meet with a person once or twice, or you only have one or two calls, and then you lose the person, or you only have that many visits with them, how do you make the most of it? And I would say if you can identify a way for them to see who might be social support for them, you will get more mileage out of your discussion with them than if you don't think that through. Because when you're gone after that first or second visit, then at least they've engaged someone else already. So really tap into that social support, especially if you're short on meeting time with them or only get to interact with them once or twice. Because social support's the number one reason they'll continue to change and be successful, and it's something that will support them in your absence, because you're not their cheerleader necessarily, but you are providing them some accountability and support. So if you're only going to be there a very short window of time, I would say help them identify who it is that might help them. So, all right, and then before we move into full practice this afternoon, I want to go through identification of change talk, and then I'm going to give you an actual, it's basically an outline of a whole MI session. So you feel like you have bits and pieces right now, probably, and we practice each of those bits and pieces a bit, and this afternoon we're going to put them all together, and I actually have a outline of, it's not a script per se, but it's kind of like an outline of what a whole session could look like, and you can pretty much read down the page, and it will help guide you in your conversations. So first, I want to just practice a little bit more on identifying change talk. And then I'll give you that script, and then I think we'll have to break for the next item on the agenda. Sorry, lots of paper, but you can refer to these things and use them in the future. So I like you to still have them, even if we can't practice all of them. one short. So we were talking about change talk earlier and the ambivalence. And I know that was a bit of a struggle when we were writing out some of the scenarios. There's over there. So I just want to go through and practice a little bit on identifying change talk and the different elements of readiness for change, because that's really what drives that whole conversation forward, is trying to get them to indicate some sort of readiness to make a change, okay? And sometimes you won't always get there, or they might need to change something, but it's, their habit of living paycheck to paycheck or something, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to the health habit you're working on immediately. So this is at the top you'll see the signs of readiness for change. There's decreased resistance, decreased discussion about the problem, resolve, and then the change talk. So when you're actually hearing them say, I need to be doing something different, or I'm ready to try something new. Questions about change. They might be asking what they could do about the problem. That might be a common thing that you run into since they already identify you as the expert in the health issues. Envisioning. So again, going back to that, what might that look like 6 months from now for you? And then the experimenting. So some people will already be in that phase of trying to do something about it, maybe just testing the waters. So let's read through these, and I'll give you about 10 minutes. Just all you have to do is identify what type of readiness to change it is based on the statement that's given, and then why you say that. And you don't have to put a long explanation, but I just want you to kind of get used to hearing that readiness to change, because that's what you're going to be listening for this afternoon when we practice. So I'll give you maybe 7 minutes. Okay, so let's go back to statement 1. And I think what I'll do is go around to the tables and just ask 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll get through at least 5 of them, hopefully, before your next part of the agenda. So for the first statement, so what do other people say about this? I just can't believe that people just cave in when they hear recommendations, sending them to a halfway house. What sort of readiness to change? First of all, was there readiness to change?
I kind of thought there was a possibility that possibly be questioning change.
Yep. Good. Anyone have anything else besides questioning? Okay, good.
I had no and yes.
It's
It could have been a no.
yeah. I suppose it depends on some of their nonverbal. Okay, number 2, statement 2. I agree it would be good to make some different choices that have less risk, but I also like to have fun with my friends. I have too much fun with them. What did you think? First, was there readiness to change there? Yeah. And which kind?
Well, he was taught that there's a change talk. But
Yep.
he also, and like, but I also like to have fun with my friends, so he's questioning about the changes.
Yep. Yep. He's in that ambivalence.
Could it fall into both categories?
It could. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
understand.
interpretation somewhat, because it can fall into 2 camps, especially when they have multiple.
What was the second one they said after change talk?
Questions about change?
Oh.
Statement 3 says you don't understand. These guys aren't going to take no thanks for an answer. They're going to hound me. I've got to come back with something stronger. Does that indicate readiness to change? Yep. Okay, and which kind?
I said envisioning. I didn't.
Okay. Yep. Anybody have anything else? Experimenting? It's not quite going into doing something about it yet. So it might still be in the envisioning. Now, if there was more to the conversation, then they said that they were maybe doing something or trying something, then I would say that would be experimenting.
Resolve be an option, because they say I've got to come back with something stronger, they're trying to resolve it.
Yep, there's some resolve there, yep. And let's do number 4 here. I won't be in this situation again. It sucks. I'm so embarrassed. Any readiness to change? Yes. Okay, which kind?
I put resolve. I didn't know if that was it.
Yeah, I would say resolve, definitely. Did anybody have anything else? The way it's stated is pretty much like, yeah, this stinks. I'm doing something about it. And number 5 says, I'm not very social, but I have been trying to speak up more in a group. Does this signal readiness to change? And which one? Which type? Yeah. There's the experimenting right there. Because they're trying. They're already trying to do something. So let's go through 6 and 7. I don't see any point in talking about it. Any change there? Yeah, that might be a tough session. Tough client. And number 7, I feel like we're going over it and over it. I get it. I just need to figure out how. What would you say that one is?
Decreased discussion.
Yeah, and probably decreased resistance, too. Because they're trying to figure out how to make the change. They're saying, I get it. I know I need to do it. I just need to figure out how. So, good. So those are the things you're listening for. When you practice this afternoon, hopefully you'll pick up a few of these, and you'll kind of see that in your scenarios. And I know we have then a 1 o'clock item on the agenda that has to be set up. So I'm going to step back, and then when we rejoin, we'll be doing all of our rounding and scenarios in small groups. Okay, so we're going to do a bunch of role playing for the rest of our time together. And I want to give you the script I promised you, sort of a script. And we'll go through that and review that quick. And then we'll get into practicing the scenarios. I think. Oh. Okay. 4 of you, right? Okay. All right, so this can be your cheat sheet for the afternoon. We're going to do it in a couple of different ways. So to start out, let's just go through this real quick. This is an outline. You can keep this with you. I would say the handiest items to have while you're practicing and just learning is the ORS example sheet and then this page, okay? So you can try sprinkling in some new statements and some new, some things that are maybe outside the box for you that you haven't practiced a lot. And on this example of an MI session handout, it outlines everything. So first you set the agenda. You're trying to find the target behavior that you're really trying to work on with the client. And then ask about the positive or good things about the target behavior. And it gives you some examples. And then you summarize for them. And then ask about the negatives, so the less good things, as it says, and you summarize. And that's that kind of that ambivalence you're starting to get into. And then talk about their life goals and values if it seems like it fits the conversation. And it gives you some examples of questions you could ask. You could also use some of the examples off that ORS handout. And then you're moving into asking for a decision. So as you're working towards the end of your conversation, you're working towards that change talk. So you're identifying that and then guiding the client to maybe make one small goal. Which on the back it gives you the outline of a SMART goal, which I'm sure you've all heard of before, many times over. So I won't go into that. And then it also gives you in the very last section If there's no decision or a decision is to continue the behavior, then it gives you some things to ask, okay? So if you're really feeling stumped, you can go there if you need to. So for the first, I want to work in partners. And I'm going to give you the scenarios for this first bit, and then later I'll have you work in groups of 3, and I'll let you come up with your own scenarios. So first, I'd like you to identify someone you haven't worked with yet today, and partner up, and then find a spot in the room, and I'll read you a scenario, and we'll go through and do that back and forth for a little while to kind of get a flow going and so you feel a little bit more comfortable, okay? So go ahead and find a partner, someone you haven't worked with, can be someone from a different table, and then find a spot in the room where you can at least hear each other. Okay, it looks like most everyone has a partner, so I'm going to read the first scenario for you to kind of get you started. So I need one person to be the client, and then one person to be the coach or counselor, okay? Okay, so here is the client scenario. Are you ready? Your client's life is a whirlwind of demands. She says yes to everything. She wants to say no. She knows how to say no, she just doesn't do it. How do you respond? Let me read it one more time. Your client's life is a whirlwind of demands. She says yes to everything. She wants to say no. She knows how to say no, she just doesn't do it. How do you respond? So the first person, take your turn as the client, counselor, and we'll go about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll switch, okay? And then you'll reverse roles, and I'll give you a different scenario.
It's at work, I have to say yes to everything, and it's at home with our social life. I just can't quite get it under control.
So some of these activities are some of them optional activities, or are some of them things that you are being assigned?
It seems like our social life, those ones at home, those options, those are more optional, those decisions. But I feel the need to always say yes and always be involved, whether it's church activities or neighborhood things. Those seem more optional.
Are people actually giving you that option?
Yes,
where you could say no.
I know how to say no, but I can't do it. I know how to say no, I just don't want to.
Okay, so
I know something needs to change.
you said that you were feeling stressed about it, so tell me a little bit about that. Define feeling stressed.
Maybe not having enough time for my family at home. That's a little bit stressful, not being able to get my household things done. No time for myself or my family.
So if I hear you right, you're saying that it's the result of being over-committed? Would that be overcommitted?
Sorry.
And the result of that is that it's just creating a lot of tension in you, and you're making judgments of yourself because you're not able to do everything to your standards. Would that be true?
That is true. So I need to find a way to say no.
So what would you, let's dream a little bit about. What would you like your life to look like?
I like being involved in those social things. So when I think about the future, I like that we're very involved in our community. But I think I just have to get a handle on it a little bit more. Maybe only choose a couple activities out of, if there's 10 activities that I feel the need to say yes to, maybe only pick 4.
So have you thought about how you could do that?
I've tried. I have tried. I've thought about prioritizing what's most important, or maybe, if this week I'm in a church activity, next week I'll do the neighborhood block party, or trying to take turns, trying to.
So you have thought about some of the steps that you could take.
Yes.
Okay, tell me about what are some of the barriers that have not allowed you to take those steps?
The pressure to have that social life and to make sure you stay up on all the activities, not feeling left out. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of pressure. That's a barrier, feeling the need to be, and we don't want to miss out on anything.
So if we're going to rate your motivation to change, On a scale from 1 to 10, where do you think you're at right now?
Well, the fact that I know how to say no, I just can't. But I know I need to change. Maybe a 6 or 7.
Yeah, 6 or 7. So there's kind of a push, but you're not quite there. Would that be correct?
That's right.
Have you done anything concrete, like list why to say yes, why to say no, or make a list of what are the most important things you want to say yes to, and those that you are not as important to you? Would something like that be helpful to you to
So I
do?
think that would help to maybe write it out so I can physically see it out on paper, and maybe that would make my decision a little bit easier.
Is there someone else who could help you reach that decision?
Yes, my spouse. We do everything together, so it'd be
Okay.
a little bit easier to maybe do that together.
So maybe
that's a
go
good
through some of
suggestion.
your commitments and get his opinion also.
Yes.
And have you talked to him about, is he perceiving that you're overcommitted?
Yes. Yep. Kind of going back to that need to make more time for family, and so slow down on the social life.
So tell me, let's talk a little bit more concrete. Tell me some specific things that you see as a step that you could take right away to start doing something about
I
it.
like your suggestion of making a list of the pros and cons and prioritize what we need to do. I think taking that step and discussing it more, involving him more to make those decisions, I think that's a good step for us to take.
So is there going to be a barrier to actually taking that step of saying no? So you make a list and you say, these are the things that I could say no to. Is it going to be difficult to actually follow through and say no?
Yes, but I think I can do it. I think if I make it a priority and set my mind to it, I think I can do it.
So on that scale of 1 to 10 again, how badly you want to try to trim those demands, really, because they're not just, they may be good activities, but they're turning into demands for you. And so how badly are you really wanting to make this change?
I'm feeling a little better, so I'm maybe at a 7, 8 now.
So the motivation
Yes,
has come up a
yes,
little
I'm
bit.
feeling a little better. I think that I can do it by taking that step.
Okay.
Okay, so for this next scenario, I'm going to challenge you to sit. You might not be able to sit totally back to back of each other, but at least side to side so you can't see the nonverbal. This is much like if you were on the phone with somebody, okay? So I'm going to challenge you to try to do it without the nonverbal cues, okay? You might not be able to hear if you're back to back. We'll see. Okay, so here's the scenario. Your client has been advised to quit smoking by his or her doctor. He or she has indicated no interest in quitting. How do you approach him or her? Okay, I'll read it one more time. Your client has been advised to quit smoking by his or her doctor. He or she has indicated no interest in quitting. How do you approach him or her?
Have you had an issue with, has that been a question for you or something your doctor's talked with you about as far as quitting tobacco?
Well, he said something about that, but it's not anything that I'm concerned about.
And why is that?
Well, I don't feel that it's a problem, and I've been smoking since I was 15, and I really don't want to quit.
Okay, so you don't have any health issues that the doctor's concerned about as far as the smoking?
Well, I don't remember him saying anything about that.
Okay, and do other people in your family smoke?
Yes, everyone I know smokes.
Okay, so like your mom and dad, your brothers, sisters, whoever in your family you've been around?
Yes.
Okay.
My
and-
mom was actually the reason I started smoking.
Oh, now do your mom and dad have any health issues that's been a concern for you?
Well, the doctor said something about Dad having high blood pressure. So, and Mom's got some strange cough that she's never had before.
So as far as your issue with the tobacco and the smoking is, why do you smoke?
Well, I usually smoke when I feel stressed or when the kids have been driving me crazy all day and I don't have anything else better to do than yell at them. I'll go outside and have a cigarette so that I can walk away for a few minutes.
I see. So it provides some stress relief for you.
Yes.
Okay. So are you interested, or would you be interested in thinking about some other things that might provide that stress relief for you?
Well, I've never really thought about anything else that would help.
If we explored some options, would you be open to considering some other behaviors, some other things that you could do to provide some stress relief?
I might be open to looking at that.
Okay. So, how old are your kids? You said you had children.
I have a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 12-year-old.
Okay. And how would you feel about them smoking?
You know, I've never thought about that. I don't think I would like it very much.
Okay. So perhaps if you looked at it from that perspective, it's not something that you would necessarily want your children to do, or do you feel strongly about that, or?
I've never really thought about it, but I probably wouldn't want them to start because it's a very expensive thing to do.
So do you think if you looked at it from that perspective, is it something you might be interested in considering, cutting back on tobacco? Could you start with maybe cutting back on the smoking?
I could maybe try to cut back a
Okay.
little.
Okay. So maybe that's a goal we could work towards, that we would at least try to cut down our smoking to start with.
Okay, and how do you think I should do that?
Well, what do you think would work for you? Tell me what you think would work for you.
Well, maybe starting with one less a day.
That's a good goal. How much do you smoke now a day, for instance?
I smoke about 7 cigarettes a day.
7 cigarettes a day. So if you cut down, you would cross 6 cigarettes across your day. That would be what you would be willing to do. And so would you be willing to try that for a period of time? For a day, a week, or 2 weeks, a period of time to start with?
I could probably try that for a week and see how it went.
Okay. So then what would be our next step? What would be the next goal that you might be willing to consider?
Well, maybe smoking one less a day, so making it 5 instead of 7.
Okay. And then let's back up just a tad. How are we going to make that happen? So how are we going to go from 7 cigarettes a day to 6 cigarettes a day to 5 cigarettes a day? What resource or support can you find in your family or your community that might help you with that? What can you think of?
Well, I don't have a lot of support, but maybe I could chew a piece of gum if I had a craving for a cigarette.
Okay. Chewing gum, toothpicks, maybe some hard candy. Would that be something that, sugar-free, of course?
That might work.
Okay. Do you have are there any programs that you have access to a computer or TV? Are there any programs that you've seen that have talked about tobacco that you've kind of ignored in the past?
Well, I know our community has a quit smoking program through the local health department, and I think that's free.
It absolutely is. There's a Nebraska statewide program as well, and I can give you some resources for that if you feel like that might be a support for you.
Okay.
We could give you some phone numbers for that.
You know, are you at a point that you would even want to discuss what could you do to quit smoking? Would you be willing to for us to even discuss that?
Yeah, I think we could talk about that.
Okay.
Do you have any ideas for me?
Well, I think your suggestion that you came up with yourself about making a list of what would happen.
Okay.
And I have known other people that said they kind of bargained with themselves. I want a cigarette right now. Mm-hmm. If I still want a cigarette in 5 minutes, I'm going to allow myself to have a cigarette. Does that sound like something that you could possibly do?
I can try.
I think I hear you talking about money a lot, and maybe what it would save are there any kinds of goals that you could set for yourself of if I quit smoking or if I cut down on the number of cigarettes that I smoke, the reward at the end would be?
Ooh, I've never thought of it that way.
Maybe
I
that's
always,
something.
I've always said that I wanted to get out of the United States and travel a little bit. I bet you I'd have some leftover money if I did that.
Okay, that's something good. So that's something that you could have at the end of your spectrum of why you would want to quit smoking.
That sounds like a good idea.
Does that sound like something that maybe you want to spend a little bit more time thinking about? And
I hear you saying is that you realize that you do have a problem smoking and you want to change, which that's great, and I'm sure your family's going to be very happy with your choice of quitting smoking. So one of the things that I would recommend is I'm going to schedule an appointment, if you don't mind, and we're going to work on a plan on decreasing your smoking, okay? This is at no cost. It's absolutely free, and it's available in English and Spanish.
I prefer in Spanish.
Great. And then I have a bunch of brochures that I can go over those brochures with you, and I can answer any questions that you might have. Now, this is not going to be easy, but we're going to work together as a team, and I'm here to support you and help you and be your friend through this process.
I tried to quit like 2 times before, and I mean, it was very hard. I think the most I can be is only one day when not, and then I feeling like I need a cigarette.
I understand, and I've heard that before, but you came to the right place.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very
So
much.
you're welcome, and any questions, you have my card. You can always call me at any time, and just remember that you came to the right place.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next round of activity, what we're going to do is work in groups of 3. And I'll let you pick your groups, but I would encourage you to pick people that you haven't worked with a lot yet, because I think it gives you a different flavor. It challenges you and stretches you a little bit when you're role playing. So find a group of 3 and identify one person to be the client, one to be the coach, and one to be the observer. What we're going to do is I will read a scenario, and we're going to have to kind of all stay together on this one so that we can recap in between. But I'll read a scenario and give you 10 minutes or so. You'll do your session, and the observer will actually use this form to rate the different competency areas of the person that's doing the coaching. Okay? So this is meant to help you learn where you're already doing really well and what comes naturally, and then identify the areas that maybe need a little bit more practice. That way, when you go back and practice this, you can pick maybe one thing a week to work on really perfecting, because otherwise you end up overthinking it and you're going off your script maybe, or you're using your or sheet, or maybe you're just doing what comes naturally, and it can seem overwhelming and clunky. So I would encourage, do you need one? I would encourage you to focus on the areas that don't come as naturally, that are maybe a little lower on this rating sheet when you go back. So this will give you kind of a good idea of where to focus your efforts. Okay, so I'll let you break up into groups of 3. You can move around if you need to. And then each of you should identify who's the coach, the client, and the observer. And then I'll read you the scenario. So what I'd like you to do, I'll read the scenario, then you can act out. I'll give you about, let's say about 9 minutes. You've been going pretty quick, so I think you're getting the hang of things. So I'll give you 9 minutes to do your scenario and practice. And then your observer at the end of that, take a minute or so to go through and tell them what you rated them on and what you thought maybe was really good and what could use a little more work. And then we'll switch people. You'll all rotate roles, and I'll read you another scenario, okay? All right. So here's the first one. Your client has a number of risk factors for cardiovascular disease, including being severely obese. The client has been in a number of physical activity and nutrition programs in the past. How do you address their obesity and encourage them to make healthier lifestyle changes. I'll read it one more time. Your client has a number of risk factors for cardiovascular disease, including being severely obese. The client has been in a number of physical activity and nutrition programs in the past. How do you address their obesity and encourage them to make healthier lifestyle changes?
Well, thanks for stopping by our clinic today. I understand that you're here because your doctor referred you to see us concerning some health issues that you're going through. You want to tell me about it?
Well, he feels that I are getting ready to become severe obese and would like me to try some different activities, but I have tried a lot of them, and so I don't see that any of them help.
May I ask what you've tried?
I've joined the Y. I was doing the morning sessions yoga. I tried Chai Tea. I tried biking. I tried walking, swimming, done some of those.
Why do you think they didn't work for you?
I didn't lose weight.
So then you just, to help me understand, then you just felt like it wasn't wasn't worthwhile for you.
Right.
So what would you consider the reason why your doctor thinks that you're becoming obese?
Probably because I like my sweets. I can't resist not having cheesecake or ice cream, strawberry dipped in chocolate.
So sweets is your biggest downfall.
Yes.
Then. Do you have an exercise program that you've used? I know you said you had used some and quit. Do you have some that you are using now?
No.
Okay. So what do you think would be some good things about enjoying sweets?
Maybe cutting back what I eat, maybe.
Okay, but why is it that you enjoy sweets so much?
I like the flavor.
The flavor? Mm-hmm. So you're not. Some people enjoy sweets because they crave the eating at a certain time, like bedtime or whatever.
No,
yours is just like
I
you
like
like
to eat
the
them.
taste. Okay. What would be some negative reasons to keep eating sweets?
The weight gain. Becoming diabetic.
Okay, yeah. So you understand then the connection between eating sweets and the health problems that might be causing for you as far as weight gain. Okay, good. Very good that you're cognizant of that. Just to help me get to know you a bit better, what are some things that are important to you?
My kids. Look forward to becoming a grandmother.
Oh.
Someday, not yet.
No.
Not yet,
Not
someday.
Congratulations yet.
My family.
Yeah. So families are important to us, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there, if we could kind of get you doing some thinking about what might help you to be more motivated to cut down on your sweets, is there anything connected with your family that might make a difference?
Well, when I become a grandma, I want to be able to do activities with them. Go to the park, take them places, and just becoming obese, that it's starting to make me slower, and so I'm going to realize I won't be able to do those activities with them.
So you're thinking that might be an important aspect of your life that might motivate you to cut down on sweets. Do you think, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, that would be not very important at 1 or very important 10, and that scale, what do you think would be important to you?
6.5 right now. Right now I'm not a grandma, so I think once I become a grandma, I'll probably be higher.
Okay. Do you think that you would be interested in cutting down on sweets before then, or do you think you're going to be wanting to wait till you're grandma before you start?
I'll probably wait.
What might be a reason to start sooner?
a challenge at work and I would like to win it.
Oh, that would be exciting. So can you tell me about that?
It's a walking tips, walk to health, and they have a contest that whoever has the most steps wins.
Okay, so now switch roles. And here's your next scenario. Are you ready? Your client is diabetic. They are not feeling well lately due to abnormally high blood sugar readings. They are also overweight. Your client does not want to see a doctor. How do you proceed? Okay, I'll read it one more time. Your client is diabetic. They are not feeling well lately due to abnormally high blood sugar readings. They are also overweight. Your client does not want to see a doctor. How do you proceed?
Okay, what brings you here today?
Well, I'm a diabetic and my blood sugars have been kind of high and I don't feel good and I really don't want to go see a doctor, but my family thinks I should.
So, you know you're a diabetic and you know how to check your blood sugar because it's been high and I assume you know that. So, have you taken the steps? Are you doing insulin and things like that, or are you
Only when I feel like it.
only when you feel like it, not like you are regimen too, I guess?
Oh, I'm supposed to be, but I kind of eat whatever I want and check my blood sugars and
Sure.
then give myself insulin based off of
How
I
you're
feel.
doing that day. So, how long has it been since you've been to a doctor?
Oh, probably a year or two.
A year or two? And so what caused you to quit going to the doctor?
No insurance.
No insurance? So, what area of Nebraska are you from?
Lincoln.
Lincoln? So I was wondering, have you looked into any clinics or anything like that might be available to you that don't require insurance?
Yeah, there's People's Health Center, but there's such a long line to get in there. I don't like sitting there waiting for hours to get in to see anybody.
Yeah. Would you be interested in doing something like telemedicine from your home?
What's that?
Well, telemedicine is it's a form of medicine where you get to meet with a practitioner, but you get to do it over the computer in a chat, or you can do it video, like face-to-face, instead of actually having to go into the clinic.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Would you be willing to look into that?
If it's available in my area.
Sure. So the way that kind of works is you will contact somebody for you to get that set up, and then they'll be sending you like a tablet in the mail and with instructions on how to use it and everything like that, and then you'll be able to talk to your provider or whoever the doctor is at the time to help you.
Just as long as my granddaughter can run the computer, because I'm not computer.
That's okay. Is your granddaughter readily available?
Pretty much, most of the time.
That's great. So do you think at some point in time she might be willing to come visit with both of us? Like say we had a meeting in a couple of weeks, and do you think she'd want to come and listen in maybe?
Oh, sure.
Would you be okay with her having her there? Okay, that sounds
Because she'd
great.
have to run the computer, because I don't know much
Sure.
about computers.
That's okay. That's completely understandable. So are you willing to kind of look into changing your health a little bit? Because it's not fun not feeling good all the time.
No, I am getting kind of tired of it.
Yeah, I bet. So is there any other things that you've been doing to kind of regulate your diabetes instead of taking the insulin? Have you been performing any exercise or eating anything?
No, because I don't feel good.
Yeah, no, and that's so it's kind of one problem leading into another. Is that kind of how it's working?
I don't have the energy to spend do
Yeah.
anything with my granddaughter, because
Yeah.
I don't feel good.
Totally understand that. So maybe if we try to get this regulating your diabetes on board and everything like that, and checking your blood sugar, we might get somewhere maybe, and you might feel more up to doing that. And,
That would be nice.
okay. So how about this? How about we meet in a couple more weeks, and we'll get you set up. I'll contact somebody regarding telemedicine, and I will contact you as well and get you to, I guess, in contact, and then we will go from there. How does that sound?
Okay, I'll think about that, sure.
All right, sounds great.
Okay.
I totally respect that. I'm going to be here. If you have any questions, if you go home and you think about it, I will be here to answer any of your questions. But just so I can understand a little bit better, why don't you want to try other things? Is it because you have not been successful other times, or?
I think part of it is the being unsuccessful. The other part is I just feel really icky right now. My blood sugars have been through the roof. I obviously have other health related issues and I don't feel well. And so I have no energy to put forth to do wellness programs or stuff that's really going to elicit a lot of energy from me. I'm just so bad feeling that I just don't have any energy to possibly do those programs.
Do you have any support at home?
No, I just live by myself.
You
and my
live by
dog.
yourself. Do you have any family in town?
No.
No friends?
I do have a friend that lives across town from us.
Okay. Would she be someone that can maybe help you a little bit? Maybe come with you to the appointments and kind of be there for you for support?
Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
If she had enough information, she could be there.
Or she could definitely come here and I can sit down with both of you and go over the wellness plan. And like I said, you don't have to do it right away. We don't want to push you into something that you're not ready for. But the other thing too, maybe seeing a counselor. Have you thought about talking to someone about what's going on in your life?
I haven't, no, but that's probably a really good suggestion.
I think it would be great.
Now, do you guys have information on that?
Yes,
as well?
definitely. We have different flyers for different counselors in town, and they work with insurance. If you don't have health insurance, some of them will help you.
They'll still see me if I don't have health
Yes,
insurance?
they'll see you for a price. We can call and check on that, but they definitely don't turn people away if they don't have health insurance.
Your client has several risk factors for cardiovascular disease and has been advised by their doctor to start exercising. They are extremely busy and have young children and claim not to have time to exercise. How would you assist your client in making this change? Okay, so one more time. Your client has several risk factors for cardiovascular disease and has been advised by their doctor to start exercising. They are extremely busy and have young children, and they claim not to have time to exercise. How would you assist your client in making this change?
I don't have time for exercise. I'm too busy. I've got kids. I've got a job. I just don't have time for exercise. And I don't know. It's just that's it. That's the way it is.
It sounds like you have a lot of things on your plate that you're dealing with.
Well, it feels like it, and then the doctor on top of it.
What kinds of things has the doctor told you that he's concerned about?
Well, I do have a history in my family of heart disease, and so it's on some of my last appointments, according to the different tests they've done, he feels like I'm getting into that high-risk category, or I'm more prone to it, of course, and so he would like me to get more exercise and cardiovascular and so, but I mean, I'm lifting kids all day. I just don't understand why I'm not getting more exercise.
Well, exercise can be a hard thing to fit in when you're a busy mom, and it can be quite a challenge. And is there anything small that you think you could start with that might help you get a little bit more activity into your day?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I mean, the kids, we could walk to school. It's that's a possibility. Or, yeah, I mean, we could walk to school or try to get to a park every so often.
What kinds of things do you enjoy doing with your kids?
Oh, okay. Well, we do like to go to the park, and they like to ride their bicycles, and I usually watch. But I guess I could. I don't have a bike, but if we could do more walking and playing games, and because they do love being outside, they really do like to be outside.
That's great. It's hard to get kids active and outside nowadays with all the electronics that we have, and getting them busy and ready to just be themselves and be kids. So do you think if you walked to the park or played some activity games with them in the park while you're there, that would help with your activity level?
Yeah, they probably so, and they do say, "Mom, come play with us. Don't just sit there." And so I do think that they would enjoy it if there was. It would help even our family bond and relationships.
So would Bonnie be able to help with the kids and give you time to exercise?
She might do that for me. I'd have to ask her.
Now, outside of exercising, is there some other alternative that you could do also to help with your cardiovascular health?
Well, I'm sure I can change my diet for sure.
Now, are those
Try to make some pre-made meals for the kids and I instead of going through fast foods.
So that sounds like a good goal.
Yes.
Making some pre-made meals.
Yes, it would be.
Now, if you
Do
had
you have any suggestions for that to help me with that?
well, there's nutritionists, there's dietitian available that we could set you up with that could help with some of those meal planning. I think that they would be really valuable assets, especially with all 6 of your kids. Also, along with your exercise program, I think that we could set up something with the local gym membership. They have some trainers there that might be able to show you some in-home.
In the morning?
They open at 5.
Okay.
Is that too early or too
No,
late?
that'd be probably good for me. 'Cause I have to be to work at 7, so that'd probably be a good time for me to go to the gym.
Okay. And not only
Do they
that,
have daycare?
They do have daycare available.
Okay.
And I think they would maybe be able to help you with some exercises that you could do at home to maybe ease some of those problems that you foresee with your children. So then you could exercise at home if that seems like a goal that you would be able to do.
I don't have a bunch of time at home, but I could probably go to the gym.